If you'll remember, Sentinels were voted the most overrated team in Champions last year, and I think that was probably a year too early. This year, they came in, did not win a single game, and were swiftly eliminated by the Chinese number 4 seed in the lower bracket. Now, this Lotus game was super interesting because, as you'll see, this XLG comp is a triple Sentinel Fade Omen comp, which is definitely not standard. But the most interesting thing was it was very attack sided on this, and a lot of people were confused by that. After all, wouldn't a Sentinel make your defense better and make attacking harder without an entry duelist? Actually, no. Triple Sentinel comps are very attack sided, and I think it's a 55% win rate on attack, but more specifically on Lotus, it's almost a 60% win rate on attacking rounds if you have a triple Senti comp. And the reason for that is you cannot retake against this. Now, I know Sentinels just retook against this, which kind of defeats my point for this pistol round, but think about it. When you have an actual buy round, you're trying to go in through Deadlock utility, Cypher utility, Sage utility. It is almost impossible to get back onto the site. So we're going to take a look here and see what went wrong for Sentinels in trying to beat this comp and how this triple Senti comp sent Sentinels home. Make sure to subscribe. I'm trying to hit 8K by the end of the champ, so go ahead, click that subscribe button. It means a lot to me, and let's get into it. Now, on the bonus round, XLG have a wonderful round, and it all starts here with this aggression on A being heard by Coconut, and then immediately calling, hey, let's go C and speed this up. But I want to notice something here. If you saw, like, for a half second there, when it switched over, there was already some spam. So right here, you see this bullet. That's not from Zelsus. He was already being spammed pretty much as soon as they could. So then he almost gets pre-fired here. It really does seem like the bullets are coming, like right here, before a real human would actually have a reaction time to this jump spot. I genuinely think XLG knew the aggression was on A, knew they didn't see anything, and that then Zelsus would need to jump spot for info and started spamming. And as you can see, it did some damage there. So a very, very high IQ play there from XLG. I know that a lot of people will think, oh, Chinese team-specific teams, they're stupid, they don't know what's going on, they're just gonna whatever. That's not the case at all here. It's very intelligent play right there. But even with this, they have shooters. I know I mentioned the comp, and I do think the comp is something that they probably wouldn't have won without it. It ended up being a very close game despite XLG being insane on attack. But I want you to look at what Raga is doing here. This is just mechanically diffing both of these players. Boom, boom, gets the kill, gets the Vice wall out, and then they quickly pivot back into C. But I would argue that C gives Sentinels the best chance of something happening here. You've got the Viper Orb, you've got the Senti util, you have Zelsus on site, he has a Phantom, you just have to make sure he can do something with it. Unfortunately for him, he can't. He dies there, and then 2v5, it's not going to be able to be won out by Sentinels, and they elect to save. But a wonderful round, absolutely beautiful round there by XLG. They really just worked the map well, and then I know I glazed the spam a little bit. It's such a high IQ play. I don't think I've seen that happen at all before. This is the only round that Sen win on defense besides the other two. They already have one, and surprise, surprise, it comes off of a Zekin hero play. Now, I used to be on the Zekin as overrated train, and while I do still think he gets very slightly overrated just because of how many Sentinels fans there are out there, he is their win con in international events. There is no questioning it. If he performs, they will win. If he doesn't, they will lose. Now, that's not to say that he didn't perform this map or anything, because he did, but he has to be almost otherworldly to hide the other problems in this Sentinels roster. Speaking of which, I'm not one of those guys that's a huge Zelsus hater. I really like Zelsus. I think that the energy you can bring to a team is something that you can't look at in VLR, but has a massive impact. If you've ever played, for example, on a Premier team with someone who you maybe didn't like or something, you know what I'm talking about, and it's obviously 10 times that when you're on a professional team and you're around each other all the time. But I think the casters talked about this as well. In fact, I remember them saying it. Against this comp, you cannot keep playing right here, because you know what's going to happen? You're going to be ran down, you're going to be netted, you're going to be seized. Every bad thing that can happen will, because they know that's where you're playing, and they have all of this utility to make your life miserable. I'm not wanting to be one of those guys who's, oh, you know, Zelsus bad, blah, 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 blame everything on Zelsus, but you have to be able to adapt. Now, you could also argue this is a coaching staff thing. They've already called timeout. If Zelsus is still playing in that same spot he's been playing, you could very well say, hey, Kaplan goes, hey, you got to play somewhere else. Now, I'm not the one to assign blame. That's not my job here. I will say something has to change. You cannot keep playing in that same spot, especially after a timeout. But also, you can't be saying, oh, we've played against this comp 50 times, because you haven't. This isn't a comp America's team is running. I would be shocked if they've scrimmed against it more than once or twice, because this is an absurd comp. However, you have to be able to adapt on the fly if you're on a team like Sentinels, where yes, the expectations are higher for Sentinels than most other teams because of the fan base, because of the amount of support you have behind you. So yeah, you need to be an elite player. Again, I don't take people seriously that act like every team is supposed to perform the same going into a season. If you have the same expectations for Furia and Sentinels, you are delusional. This is an org that is supposed to be a championship contender every single year, and you cannot continue to make these mistakes if you want to win championships. Now, XLG here want to play really standard after that Zek and Ace here. They're just going to go ahead, go and B, draw out the wall, pretty standard stuff here. But this round is going to show you how oppressive just one of the Sentinels can be, specifically Deadlock. I think that she's in a weird spot because she makes retakes almost impossible. But playing double Senti in this meta isn't great, and so I think that, honestly, this triple Senti comp might, funnily enough, be the best place for her in terms of getting the maximum value out of her without sacrificing some of the other things like watching flank and like all that. I think that you're able to use Deadlock as a kind of initiator with the grab net and all that. It's really awesome, and then obviously the retake stall is great. Now I do want to talk about that little slow orb lineup here, clearing out Rubble, because I think it's really, really nice. If you have an Omen there, more than likely they're just going to TP out after that, and if you don't, it makes the fight super awkward for them, it makes tucking awkward, so I do really like what they have going on with that, and then boom, you're able to scale up A, right? 40 seconds left. The biggest issue with this comp is supposed to be getting out on site, actually getting on site before being able to have the retake, and it's not. As you can see, caged off, walled off. Zellsis, as he's playing kind of in this weird off/on site thing where he's not fully committed. Well, guess what? We're taking you off the site. You're not going to be able to do that. And now, even in a 5v3, right? Even right here, 5v3 situation, XLG do make it a 4v3 in a second here with a nice little paranoia. Viva jumps up, gets the kill, but it shows how oppressive Deadlock is. There's a reason Deadlock is the player main, so that these two sonic sensors can be up, because it makes this retake awful for Sentinels. Zekken does exactly what he needs to do here. Draws crosshairs, does everything perfectly right there. Literally plays the round to the best of his ability. Draws the crosshairs, gets him to shoot him so that hopefully his teammates can do stuff. But everyone is stunned from the Deadlock utility. Boom. Right there, literally, Coconut was stunned. Narrate was just dead from Coconut. It was beautiful. And now Zekken, he's done his job. He's gotten kills. He's drawn crosshairs. He should really be dead by this point, but he's not able to clutch that. And then people will blame Zekken. That is not his fault at all. It's literally just the Deadlock utility being so oppressive on there when Sentinels are trying to retake the site. This is a super pivotal round for the outcome of the game. XLG just won their first defensive round here, and it was off of a push similar to this on A, where they just fought, used the utility. It was a really nice round, but it was over in, the first 20 seconds. Really, it was turned into a 2v5. But right here, it's only a 4v5 originally, and they go ahead and they give it up. They say, all right, you guys can have A. And it's very difficult to push through all of this utility, the Sage utility, the Deadlock walls, all of this over here. But Sentinels are willing to do it. They do. They get on the A bomb site. Now, I want to remind you, this game was 11-13. Anything that happens here could be argued as a game winning or losing choice, right? It was such a close game. I know a bunch of pro players say that they would rather get completely blown out, like 13-2'd, than 13-11, because when it's that close, you feel like any mistake you made through the game. I do wonder if that was kind of something that happened going into Haven, where Sen did lose. Regardless, though, they do get onto the A-bomb site here. Pretty simple stuff. You're going to go ahead and have Coconut in this normal position, but Sentinels aren't really aware of it, to be quite honest with you. He gets a kill on the bang. And if you'll notice, after this kill, look at John. He turns around. He wasn't really sure if he was behind him or what. Zekken, though, was at least able to understand where he was. Turned around. Now, 3v4 scenario. Happyway gets the kill. I honestly believe that XLG were going to retake with Fate ult. That's why they were so willing to give up the site, but they don't even need to. They can literally just Cypher ult here. And by the way, if Cypher wasn't already arguably underpowered, I think a Cypher ult increase might be in the works. It's a very valuable ult. For example, like right here, John isn't doing the grab neck. He's trying to hide his position. He doesn't want to make a sound cue. But as soon as the Cypher ult goes out, he realizes his position's out. I don't know. I think positions of everyone on the map, it's pretty valuable. So I do think if he wasn't already decently underpowered, he might be in line to get that ult increased by an orb. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. And let's look at the final round here. Now, on this last round here of Lotus, Sen end up going a little bit around the map, but they end up going towards C, which is really interesting because XLG play nobody. See, literally 0-man C, and give it up to them pretty free, to be honest. It's pretty free bomb site. There's a trip B main and then a trip kind of waterfall on there, and then a waterfall cam as well, but there's not really much on this site. I really don't know why they gave it up this much, to be honest. They don't have any retake ultimates available. I think it may have just, been one of those things where they thought Sentinels were going to go elsewhere. So really, you are in a good position right here if you're Sen. It turns into a great position after Zekken is able to get this kill right here. It turns into, if you tell any team in the world, hey, you get to be in a 4v5 on the C site, like this, I don't think there's a team that's going, oh no, I don't like this. There's not even that much utility available for XLG. But then it starts to all crumble. No Man gets the kill, gets his ult online, then a Fade Haunt isn't broken, then Happy Way wins the fight against Bang. Now, because of that Fade Haunt, No Man can use his ult, knows where to get Narrate, knows where John is, and the only player who really had a chance for this is Zelsus, who unfortunately, his spray transfer, he thought Cypher was dead, and then went on to Viva, and then tried to go back to Cypher, but whiffed. It just wasn't great, and Narrate was already caught in that in that deadlock ult, so it ends up being a loss. And yeah, Sentinels will go on to lose Haven, and then lose this game, ultimately bombing out of champions. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you've already stuck around this long, I'm assuming you like my content, so go ahead, click on one of these videos on the left or right, whichever I put them. I low-key forgot. Make sure to subscribe, it means a ton to me, and I'll see you guys next time.